Hello, everybody. Cut down epidemic just a tad. My last engagement with you all, I couldn't even hear epidemic. So something like I was fooling around with something down here, a setting with the sound levels and epidemic. I could hear it in the earphones, but I couldn't hear it in the recorded session yesterday, or early this morning. So it was like dead quiet in between me thinking. I don't like that. I like the sound in between, so I can take a breath, even just think for a minute, There are times when you have to think, regardless of the what you might think. Yeah. Plus, I worked on the processor so I could have these deep thoughts without overmodulating your speakers. So now we have a more natural sound. This is supposed to be a simulcast between 3 social networks. Well, it's only 2 today because Twitter decided to go south. So we don't have Twitter today. Only about 10 seconds of Twitter. And then it went... It's supposed to be a Travelcast. And I have good signal here. As far as bandwidth, I should say bandwidth. Here's Ookla. Ookla. You can download it. It's an app. And you see there, it has a green circle. Let me start it over again. I'm going to close it out. There we go. So now here we go. Ookla is down here, right next to the Hurricane app. You can see it in the corner of your screen, lower corner. It looks like something with a dial. It's next to I don't even know how to describe that one. Anyway, it's next to the Hurricane. You see the Hurricane. It's blue. All right, so there you go. You see it says, we're connected to the internet. And then that signal disappears. And then you press go. And let's see what the milliseconds are. Oh, that wasn't good. The ping was ping, P-I-N-G, to P-word was 42 milliseconds. That's not good. No. And, oh my God, the upload speed is terrible also. It's 25. I need 10. But I want 60, 70, 80. I'm paying for 200, right? Can you believe this? I'm getting 1/10 the speed. You call Xfinity, you can scream, you can cry. You see that 192 is supposed to be 2,000. I'm paying for 2,000, I'm getting 192. Gosh. I do this every day. I don't necessarily... Oh, Jesus. There's a ping of 83 milliseconds. That's like so terrible, I can't even believe it. Elon, where are you? Elon, I need you. Now this we could get better results from his satellite. Now if he could, I'll have to start watching, what I can get from his satellites. Yeah, but then they got to have something outside, what, I can't, no, that ain't gonna work. This is terrible. The internet is terrible. They must be working on it. Here's oh my God. There's 29 milliseconds. That's 29 thousandths of a second. It goes bing. It's like you banging a pipe, a nice big pipe, with a ball peen hammer. Bam! And then that ping goes all the way to the backbone of the internet, and it gets ricocheted back. And what is the time for that round trip? 29 milliseconds. That's, so I'll do one more time while I'm bloviating. Oh my God. I know it's terrible. And this iPad is super tuned in. It has the absolute best internet connectivity, hardware and software arrangement. It has an N1 chip. If we have a clue of what that might mean. Well, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you what. Oh gosh, what's going on here? Oh gosh. Looking for the N1 chip. I don't think it. No. I have it. I know I have it. I know I have it. I could not have missed it. There's all this. Yeah, that's the 14th, the 16th. See, I got these dates in there. 17th. Oh boy, what's going on here? Oh, you know what? I know what it is. I have this on collections. What do you call it? Recently saved. We need to go to recently saved. I apparently didn't make that. Yeah. Oh, oops, there it is. No. Getting close. Getting close. There it is. Bingo. I told you it would be there. You can't sneak that by me. There is the Apple N1 chip. And what is that supposed to do? Speed tests. Speed Test Net's owner, Ookla. Ookla. Remember that? I spelled it out a while ago. Published a new report detailing Wi-Fi performance of iPhone 17 users in the wild. The data shows that the new iPhone gets significantly faster Wi-Fi speeds compared to the iPhone 16 with this Apple-designed N1 chip. There it is. Some gray matter with an apple and an N and a 1. So inside the iPhone is a chip that looks like that. That might have painted on the exterior N1. I would like to see that in a. You want to do it? It actually is supposed to super duper faster speeds. Okay, iFixit, IFIXIT of N1 chip. Yeah. I'm gonna have to press the arrow here that goes on Google search. There we go. anything that does that. Let's add some more. Let's iPhone. iPhone Pro Max. And one chip with iPhone Pro Max. Hit enter. Now let's see what happens. Did you mean? No. Oh Jesus, I have an NI chip. No wonder it doesn't know what I'm talking about. And one. One. The number one. I probably typed it, but you know this. Let's do Apple. Apples. Just Apple and one chip. All right, now let's press enter and see what happens. iFixit has not yet performed a full teardown of the iPhone. There you go. Let's see, when we go to the AI mode, look at it. It's searching all these records. It says what? Say what? Say what, Jimmy? According to iFixit teardowns, the iPhone 17 Pro Max contains both the main Apple A17 Pro chip and a separate Apple N1 chip for wireless networking, which supports Wi-Fi 7, Bluetooth 6, and Thread connectivity. Teardowns also highlight a new vapor chamber cooling system. All right, let's go to the iFixit website. We can just, I love these touchscreens. You know, this stupid crap with the mouse is very annoying. Yeah, it's so archaic. All right, let's see what's going on. Can we find a teardown of this is not fair for me to, you know, I need to repairability. No, I want something with the N1 chip. Yeah, I don't think they've, well, I don't see. Let's go to images. There we go. We have, what? Let's press right here. What's this? There's a little chipboard. See, they take these things apart. Oh my God. I mean, it is. There you go. I'm looking for the N1 chip. It looks like this square one right here. Oops. Yeah. The iPhone 17 Pro Max teardown. Yeah. See, it opens it up. That's what I like. See, I like to look inside. Uh-oh. Yeah. See, there's the battery. That's the biggest thing in there. And then you got this whole row of stuff. And then underneath that is another whole row of stuff. It's like a sandwich. This yeah, they lift the battery out. You know, there's not much under the battery because the battery is thick. They weigh it. How much pressure you got to put on the button. Troubleshooting. Popular forum questions. What's going on with the N1 chip? No, that was not a popular question. Apparently, they hardly even mention it, but it is a I'm just speed reading here this microprint. Sorry. All right, I have a 2 tetrabyte version. Yes, I do. 2 million to 1 contrast ratio. 1,000 nits. And it can peak at 1,600 nits. A nit is a degree of lighting, that gets emitted from a light-emitting diode. Like on a screen. Like an LCD screen, or, these screens. And they measure it, the brightness, in nits. N-I-T-S. See right here, 1,000 nits. You think I'm kidding, right? No. I'm trying to help you with this, and I don't even know what the hell I'm talking about. Yep, there you go. 48 megapixel fusion. That's the main camera. Main module. Yeah, see, they take this crap apart. And Apple is not going to pull the wool over these guys' eyes, because they take it apart and then they x-ray it. So you can't fool these guys. Look at that 4K 120 video recording. That 120 FPS, frames per second. They left off the FPS. That's okay. I'll help you with that. That's a lot. That's like, almost is the normal number of frames per second. 120 frames per second means you can go to 4 times 1/4 the speed of the frames per second. So it almost looks like slow motion. Yeah, now here's an ultra-wide 48 megapixel fusion, another fusion camera. This is a 13 millimeter f2.2. That other one up there is f178, which is like unbelievable. Unbelievable aperture. Now here's the telephoto module, 48 megapixel fusion module, 100 millimeter. It enables a 12 with an 8x optical quality zoom. f2.8. That's like, holy mackerel. An 8x optical with image stabilization at f2.8. That's like, now they have a center stage selfie camera. This is new. This is brand new. Everything's brand new, but this is like, they went from 12 megapixels to 18 megapixels. 6 goes into 12 twice. 6 goes into 18 3 times. 3 times 6 is 18, yeah. So we've increased the megapixel of the forward-facing camera, which means the camera that's behind the LCD screen that you look at, is a 50% increase in megapixels. It's an f1.9 aperture, 4K 60 frame per second video recording if you wanted to hold the camera out in front of you and do 4K videoing. And you should record everything at 4K if you can, because in a couple of years all your big screen TVs are going to be 4K screens. Yeah. So that's why you see all this 4K stuff all over the place. Retina flash, ultra stabilized video, I'm sure. Dual capture. That means you can, what's looking at the forward facing camera is the same. You can record at the same time the rear facing cameras. Yeah. Hey, look, Molly, look at the moon. Yeah, I took a picture of the moon, which is just scary good. You know, an iPhone. Taking a picture of the moon, really? Cinematic module up to 4K video Dolby at 30 frames per second. Slow motion video supports 1080p at 120 frames per second. And we have time-lapse video and it's stabilized video. Okay, sensors. Face ID. It has a LiDAR sensor. It has a barometric sensor. It has a high dynamic range gyroscope. A high G accelerometer. It can detect a crash. That's one thing we don't want to test. No, sir, I don't think we're going to test the crash. It has a proximity sensor and a dual ambient light sensors. That makes it sound like it's two sensors tied together to measure ambient light. Okay, there you go. Here we go. Apple's N1. See, Apple N1 wireless networking chip has a special chip with all kinds of, transistor things inside. The electrical engineering is, it's mind-boggling, actually. It has a 5G. We're talking about 5G like with your cell towers. Sub 6 gigahertz and the NN microwave on all models. Gigabit LTE, I don't know what that means. Bluetooth, I know what that means. And you should too, oh darn it. NFC with reader mode. Express cards with power reserve. I don't know what that means. There's something in there with the wireless connectivity express cards. All right. Apple official iPhone Max specs. Yeah, well, these guys have, that guy right there, Karsten Freudenheim. Now there's a name for you. Yeah, all right. Well, we can't be, we have to be. Look at all the spec. He's written this. He writes all this stuff out. There's the schematic of the. He probably just picked that image off the Apple site. And here's the. All right, I was talking about the N1 chip, and hopefully they had an X-ray. We have a nice chip that says N1 on it, so I can show you that I'm not just some kind of crazy person. All right, that was live television, folks. That didn't work. Let's come back to But anyway, I knew I read something about N1 chips, and there it is. They invent these chips, and then that's it. The N1 chip. That must be spectacular. And then, of course, you have no clue what that means. Because you're not an electrical engineer that deals with microelectronics. Electrical engineer could be someone that's, that works for FP&L with the grid, with the electric system, with the grid, where we get all our power. That could be electrical engineering, that kind of a person. Anyway, I knew there was an N1. I knew I clipped out something. It's not even a story. When you read this, it says, oh yeah, N1 chip. And they have it right there. And it's like a headline. New designed Apple N1 chip. Right at the end of that sentence. You got this whole blurb going, and there's some mention of it in the very bottom of this terse verse. Yep, that's an even more terse verse. Thanks to Apple N1 chip. Survey data shows that Wi-Fi speeds are faster. I will sign on to that faster remark. I agree. Although our internet speeds at the moment they can't, look at it, I can tell the milliseconds of the ping, 32, oh my God. It should be 11, and it's 32. So, the download speed is, that's all, this barely passes muster for like gaming. Does. You only get 4 out of 5 dots on whatever the meaning of this is. Wi-Fi calling. Oh, video calling. Forget it. So you're going to do a video call, you're going to get X'd out. The voice comes and goes. That's what you're going to get. We'll give that 3 out of 6 stars. We shouldn't. We should give it 2. Well, 0.57. 57 megabits per second. Up. See, that's what we're interested in, the up. Because we are my mouth is tired. I've just been thinking about talking all day. And my mouth has gotten tired. There's no one here. So unless I'm talking to myself, there's no reason for my mouth to be tired. I need 10 megabits per second, period. I don't want any, See, now the download speed, that's for people that want to read stuff. So you read a thing and you want the picture to show up when you're reading. Or, you download a video, you want to watch the video. 60 megabits per second up, which you can see there on your screen. So, that's okay. I'm paying for 200. I'm getting 60, and I love it. Yeah, just a few minutes ago, it was like 20. 60, I'll take. Yeah. And believe me, this Ookla is a good company. So I'm going to go back to my photo album and go back to where it says, go this way, to where it says 18. There we go. This is today. Everything here was yesterday. Oh yeah, you remember Jimmy there at the West Boca Country Club, as you can see in the top of the image. It was taken November 16th, 2019 at 6:47 p.m. And my buddy Dr. Ron is leaning on me. I am stable, and I am stabilizing Dr. Ron. No, we're not allowed to hold your cocktails in view. You see, there's a guy behind me. Ouch! I don't know whether he has a cocktail or not. They serve cocktails. Look at that. A lobster tail and a juicy, oh my God, look at that. Tenderloin tips or something. It was really quite good. I must say, for serving 1,000 meals simultaneous, you run out with these dishes. You wonder how the hell they do it. I don't know how they do it. It's like a factory. And everyone seems to get fed like right away. It's like unbelievable. So, not much happened between the 17th and the 18th. I know what happened. I installed, refurbished these guys. Cameras in my living quarters here, 8 stories above Chops, at our 1,550 square foot apartment, which Marilyn has marvelously decorated with all our stuff and her Indian accent on the second syllable. Here's something you don't want to hear about. The best Canon telephoto lens. I have this lens. It is, you see that 70 to 200? And the red band that's going around there, and it says f2.8. I could just recognize, this is the first time I did the old Expando, the reverse pinch. A pinch makes it smaller. A reverse pinch makes it bigger. Just so we have our nomenclature down, right? But that lens, the best Canon telephoto lens for your digital SLR or your EOS R series camera. And I have an EOS R1. That's a mirrorless. That lens is designed, by the way. You see how big and fat the lens cap is, the rear lens cap, with this distinctive silver band right above the lens cap. Yeah. This lens is designed for EOS cameras. You can't do it on a DLSR. Wrong title. Now, Canon makes a 70 to 200 lens, 70 to 200 f2.8 zoom lens for the traditional digital SLR, but that's a different lens than this one. This is designed specifically for mirrorless, no mirror, and it is 20 millimeters close. The rear element of this lens is exactly 20 millimeters between that and the actual digital material that receives the light. Whereas the lens, the EOS lens that is made for the traditional single lens reflex camera, where you have mirrors flapping up and down, that the distance between the optic material that receives the light is like 20 millimeters further away to make room for the the mirror to flop back and forth. Since we don't have a mirror, the lens can be closer to the digital material receiving the light. Anyway, so that is just a shot out of the blue. It is my favorite. I have an EOS R1 camera on a tripod looking out over the ocean right now. It's just sitting there, collecting dust, if you will. And my iPhone, I'm looking at right over here. These lenses on this little puppy, this iPhone, the engineering in this thing that you carry in your hand. I have a very thin silicone case around it in the event that I drop it. And I've dropped it 10 times already. Oh God, it's like every time I turn around I drop this thing. There was a couple of days where I was like drop nuts. And I like to be very careful of all these things. But they're designed to take a licking and keep on ticking. But you can see the 3 lenses on there. And this middle one, that's the telephoto lens. The light goes in, hits a prism, and then goes directly across this way, going through another couple of prisms which affect the optical zoom, what they call an 8x optical zoom. And I think they're cheating on that a little bit because they're taking the 45 megapixel, they're folding it, I don't know. They're doing some digital chicanery that they're not being, I mean, they're telling people what they're doing. They're folding it over. It's not a true 8x optical zoom. It's really 4x optical zoom, and then they're doing some magic to make it 8x. But it's more software than hardware. They're using all those 45 megapixels, and they're sampling every other pixel. So it's like a digital crop. Anyway, I don't like it. This lens is a magnificent lens. But anyway, I love the iPhone. And there have been photographers that have done testing. They've taken pictures. They've looked at the pictures. Then you take pictures with my Canon R1 with the best lenses in the world, which are these EOS L, they call them L lenses. And if I do a reverse pinch, you see there's an L, then it says IS f2.8 L IS. It's an L lens. It's indicated with a red band around it. So it's an L lens, and it has optical image stabilization. That's what IS means. And you can see it's an RF lens instead of an EF lens. The EF lenses are the regular film cameras with the mirror flopping back and forth. These RF lenses are mirrorless cameras. And they're 20 millimeters closer, like a half inch closer. The distance between the element on the other side of this lens is 20 millimeters closer to the digital material that's reading the light. Okay, let's get off that. All right, 7 years after Khashoggi murder, Trump is rewarding Saudi Crown Prince with the sale of his F-35 jets. So they're going to buy several $100 billion worth of the best jets that we have manufactured. I think now, Khashoggi, if you remember, this was the guy that walked in to one of the consulates, if you will. This is all over in Saudi Arabia, or somewhere over in the Saudi Arabian area. This wasn't something that happened, I don't think, in the United States. I think it happened somewhere in the, Mideast somewhere. I don't remember what does this article say. No. So he walked into the building, and he never came. Just a suitcase came out. It turns out that they killed him. Khashoggi apparently was not a fan of the Crown Prince or his other people that, wear this garb. Nothing critical, just saying. And, these guys are all really wealthy, these families, because they own the oil. And, you got the world pumping out this oil, and they're getting, like $50, $60, $80, $80 a barrel. And they're pumping millions and millions of barrels a day. So and it's like a constant cash register. They can't spend the money fast enough. So sure, hey, they want the best jets on the planet, and they'll they'll pay up for it. It keeps our factories working. We've apparently got all of them that we need, and so what the heck? Airplane manufacturers will build, several $100 billion worth of jets. It's not just the jets, it's the parts. You need parts because this equipment needs to be serviced. So you need a parts department, a big parts department when you're dealing with these jets, because they are high power and oh my God, they got nuts and bolts and screws. And constant servicing needs. You need training, so you need trainers. You need these stations that are exact duplicates of the cockpit. So the pilots can practice flying, basically being strapped in a chair that looks just like the chair that's inside the jet. But you're in a simulator. So it's an F-35 simulator. So these are, so he'd probably got 6 or 8, 10 of these simulators. And these are, $20 million a copy, the simulators. But it's, they're in an air-conditioned warehouse. Power requirements, 10-inch concrete floors. You get all these, they're elevated above the ground because they move. They not only visually, all the windows are covered with like video screens, and the video screens can depict certain areas of the world, the whole world, and the jet can fly over, various countries and zoom down and zoom up, and you can practice fighting with another jet, launching missiles and shooting projectiles, bullets at the other aircraft. And so instead of shooting down real jets, it's like an incredible video game in the simulator, a $20 million simulator. So your pilots and your co-pilots with trainers. So you need the simulators, you need the trainers. So it's not just buying the plane. You got all kinds of support stuff, because we need to teach those guys how to fly it. You don't go in there and it's not like driving a car where you just, find the start button and then just start driving. No. You need lessons just to figure out how to turn it on, to spin up the engines and all that. Because these jet engines, they need to be, you need to, this is too complicated to talk about, but in other words, when you start a jet engine, you don't just turn a key and like a start, like with an internal combustion engine. Let's just do an analogy. To get an internal combustion engine to start, there's a thing called a starter. You turn the key and you turn it a little bit further, and then when the engine starts, then you back off, the key. Well, that starter gets the engine, rotating. And then the spark plugs and the gasoline and the carburation of the fuel and the spark plugs and da-da-da. So within 5 or 10 seconds of getting in the car and turning the starter, but you have to actually get it rotating. You need a 12-volt system and the starter motor, which is a little electric motor, very powerful, small electric motor that runs on 12 volts or 24 volts. And it causes the gasoline engine, it gets it spinning. You have to do something to get it spinning. It just doesn't spin itself. It has to be spun. And then it needs to be energized. And the fuel needs to be carbureted in the carburetor and mixed with air and atomized, because the liquid gasoline has to be evaporated, spritzed into the pistons, and then the piston fires. You have to start the rotation. Well, the jet engine, guess what, folks? You have to spin up those engines. Now, in that case, they don't have pulleys and fans. So what you do is, there's something like like on the other end of a vacuum cleaner, you've got a hose that pumps out air. So on this end of the vacuum, it sucks, and on that end of the vacuum, it blows, and it goes through filter paper to filter out all the nastiness that you're sucking up from the floor, for example. All right, so you take the back end of that vacuum cleaner. I'm just talking out loud, folks. And inside the jet engine, they have these fans. So you take the back end of the vacuum cleaner and you blow it on that fan blades, and it starts the jet engine rotating. In the vernacular of a pilot, they say, spin up the engines. So they turn on these devices that produce a air like that's coming out of the back end of a vacuum cleaner, and much more forceful, because the jet engine is as big as this room, So you want to get that engine spinning, and the ball bearings on these engines are and the balancing and everything is machined to exact tolerances. So because when that sucker is rotating, on its axis, it rotates at 5, 10, 20, 25,000 RPM. And there can't be any vibration in that engine, or else it'll shake itself to death. So everything is machined to such exact tolerances that sucker can spin up to 25,000 RPM, and you can put a glass of water on the top end of that sucker and it won't vibrate off. It'll sit right up there and the water will be unmoving. That's how steady and precision those engines are. The manufacturing process for those suckers, I mean, they're numbers of millions of dollars. An engine might cost $5 million a piece. The Boeing aircraft company is probably charging, for a 777 or a 787 aircraft that might cost, $175 million. It's probably got $50 million worth of engines. 2 $25 million engines, one on each wing, sitting on a pylon, producing 100,000 pounds of thrust. So it pushes, the engine pushes the aircraft forward because it's throwing a lot of air out the back end of that engine. So if you're on the other side of that engine, you get blown all over the airfield. There's not a lot of things laying around on a tarmac, not behind the jet, that's for sure, because those engines throw out so much air when they're running, when they're spun up. And those engines, it takes people around the airfield on the tarmac with flashlights and radio gear and all that. They're talking to the pilots, and they're warning the pilots, don't spin up those engines until these guys that are dealing with the baggage carts and so forth get out of the way, because they'll get blown over. I mean, the amount of air that flows through those engines is huge. It's millions, tens of thousands of pounds of pressure to push the aircraft and to get it up to 200 miles an hour, 0 to 200 miles an hour along that airfield, to get up, to have enough airspeed that's moving across those wings to give it enough lift along with the power of the engines, so that sucker flies. Mr. Murray, Marilyn's father, explained to me how a jet engine works. I could not understand how that sucker works for the life of me. And the magic to how those jet engines work is that inside those jet engines, the engines like narrow down almost like a funnel. So the air comes in and then it gets squeezed into a smaller and smaller diameter. And there are little fan blades in there. You know, so there might be 7, 8, 10 rows of blades to continuously push that air to make it more, compressing that air into unbelievable levels. You know, it's hard to imagine. But remember, the opening of that engine is so big on the front end of the engine. You can stand up straight up tall inside of there, you know, and you still got a couple of feet open on top of your head. You know, so the opening is big, so it's sucking in a lot of air. And that a lot of air is then getting narrowed down to, maybe a foot. Is going from a 20-foot diameter to a 1-foot diameter. That's a 20-to-1 compression. And then the spinning of those fan blades, they go very fast. So you have this air that's being thrown in the engine to begin with. To get it to, you got to get it spinning before you push the start button, which means the ignition sequence of starting a jet engine, where the jet was sprayed in there, and right after the compressor series of blades, and there's an explosion. It explodes in a sense because you've got all this oxygen. Air with oxygen in it. That's the oxidizer. And you have this jet fuel number 2 that's sprayed in the middle of that engine, maybe a little further back from middle, where the amount of air compression is so huge. The engine is spinning at, thousands of RPM. And it's enough so that when you ignite, the first ignition happens, the explosive force, it's not an explosion like a firecracker. It's a constant burning of this fuel. And when it burns, it expands. So that's, like an explosion of this fuel. Well, the air is going, from the front to the back end of the engine. So the explosive force goes backwards out that engine. Well, there are more fan blades attached back there. So the fact that fuel is expanding, that hits those blades. And they're all connected on the same shaft. So that makes the shaft turn faster. Well, that means it's sucking in more air. And then more air is going front to back. And the fuel is ignited in the middle of that engine, and a bunch of fan blades back there connected to the same axis as the fan blades up here. It's like, that's unbelievable. So it continues, the ignition continues, and the fan blades spin faster and faster and faster. So when the pilot pulls back on those levers, one for each engine, so if it's a 2-engine jet, you got 2 levers, and he grabs both of them at the same time, because you want to have equal thrust on both those engines. He's basically cutting back on the amount of fuel that's being spritzed inside that huge fan. And it's like a huge fan. And it's spinning at, 18,000 RPM. I'm not making that up. That's, 15,000, 18,000, 20,000 RPM. I think those big engines, maybe like 18,000. I don't think they go too much faster than that. They probably could, but they, you'd be at the upper limit of how fast they can rotate. The pilot looks at that, their gauges, digital gauges in the cockpit that show them how fast the engine, what the RPM is of the engine. So they can look at that and just check to make sure, number one, well, this is important, the RPM of the engine on each engine has to be identical. If it isn't, you hear this warble, because it'll be a very uncomfortable ride for passengers inside an airplane, a jet, when the engines are not spinning at the exact same speed. I mean, to the cycle per second. If it's a half a cycle per second different, there will be a low frequency sensation that the passengers will feel and hear that'll make the ride very uncomfortable. I mean, it doesn't shake you out of the seat, but it's annoying and it's loud, so to speak. It's a very low frequency, so you can't hear it, but you can feel it. It's very important that the system, there's a circuitry that senses the exact rotation of the engines to make sure they're spinning at the same speed. So when he pushes forward or pulls back on the throttle, set how fast he wants the engines, which basically dictates how fast the jet's going. If you want to climb an altitude and get up to 35,000 feet, you run up the engines to 18,000 RPM. And then when you get to cruising altitude, you back off on the engines a little bit, maybe 30%, because you don't need as much power to cruise as you do to accelerate, which is, same thing if you're driving a car. You use a lot more energy to pass a car than you do just to cruise at 70 miles an hour down the highway. So when you want to pass a car that's going 65, you've got to push your foot down on the accelerator pedal, which is the same thing as the pilot pushing forward on his throttle. In his case, he doesn't pass planes, it's not like passing cars. What he does, he throttles up to basically go up to a higher altitude. So you need more energy, you need more thrust if you want to increase your altitude. Because remember, you're lifting 500,000 pounds of people and aircraft. If you add up how much the aircraft weighs, it could be 600,000 pounds. So to lift 600,000 pounds 2 or 3 more thousand feet requires more energy, more fuel to get it to a higher altitude. You betcha. So that's what those throttles are all about. But once you get to a cruising altitude, whatever the air traffic controller says, flight, they usually use, the flight numbers, like 272 heavy. Bring your aircraft to 32,000 feet, please, at a setting of 270 degrees. So you set your direction with the dial up on the control system in front of you, and you set your throttle up a little bit to get to 32,000 feet. And once you get there, you level off. So instead of angling up, you level off. And because you don't, and then you pull back on the throttles on the engines because you can use a little less power to cruise than you would if you wanted to increase your speed or your altitude or both. Yeah. And those jets, they cruise at, 550, 450 miles an hour, 500 miles an hour, 600 miles an hour on occasion. Anyway, I was very interested in how jet engines work. And they're so big, and they're so... The quality of these engines, they have to be very good, Each engine has its own internet connection, would you believe it? It connects to the satellites, directly to satellites. Each engine, the engine number, the serial number, the model number of the engine. So if you've got a Rolls-Royce engine on number 1 and number 2 engines, those Rolls-Royce engines and the General Electric engines and the Pratt & Whitney engines, they're all high quality because they've been making them for, decades. Oddly enough, the Rolls-Royce company makes very, very high quality jet engines. Donald Trump, for example, he has a 757 jet, which can handle like 150 passengers, considering the luxury leather seating he's got in there. They're not all lined up one way and the other. He's got, one part of the cabin set up like a living room, and another set up like a dining room, and another part of the aircraft set up where the media sits, sort of in the backside of the plane. They're more rowed off. Luxury seating, no rowed off. Rowed, R-O-W-E-D, rowed off rows of press people that sit in the back area. You got the middle area, and then you've got President Trump and his cabinet members and senators and congressmen and important people that are flying with the president up towards the front of the airplane. You might have a seat in the middle of the airplane, and President Trump would send one of his aides to go, would you go ask Mr. James if he would come forward and have a little chat with me up front? And of course you're like, oh, holy crap, yeah. Sure, I'd love to have a little chit chat with the president. Yeah, even if it's 5 minutes, How many people have a chance to sit down and chat with the president for 5 minutes while you're 32,000 feet up in the air, flying in his exquisite aircraft that is, hand polished. Every screw, nut, and bolt is hand tightened, with torque drivers to make sure they're tightened at the exact screw pressure. You tighten them too much and the screw threads get stripped. If you don't tighten it enough, the nut, for example, on a nut and a bolt, may vibrate off and not be holding what it's supposed to be holding. So they design these screws with the right threads and the right amount of muscle on that wrench. And that's called a torque wrench. Yeah. I have a little tiny torque wrench up there on top of my bookcase, which I use when I mount a telescopic sight on a rifle. And the bushings that hold the telescopic sight on the rifle barrel have a very serious set of screws. There are like 8 of them, and they have to be tightened with a torque wrench. You don't want to put too much pressure on there because you might strip the screws. The threading might just pull right off the body of the screw, and then, oh gosh, that's a problem. So you have a torque wrench which puts the right amount of pressure on that screw head so that the telescopic sight is securely mounted on that barrel, because you've got a lot of pressure when the bullet, when you pull the trigger, there's a lot of vibration that occurs. Forward to back vibration. The kick of the rifle pushing backwards as the projectile goes forwards. For each and every action, there's an equal but opposite reaction. Anyway, so I have a torque wrench. It's a little tiny one for little tiny screws to make sure you don't over tighten the little tiny screws. That's what a torque wrench is. Well, torque wrenches are used all over the world with mechanics that tighten up, the bolts that hold the top end of a gasoline engine when you take the manifold off. All the screws that hold that manifold on are screwed with a torque wrench. Yes, sirree, Bob. Yeah. I want to show you something. Let's see. There it is, right there. So let's do that right there. There we go. So, all right. So I want to show you. I just, you wonder how come I wasn't talking to you guys for a few days. Well, I got my cameras reworked, and so I have right here, and I'm going to show you right in this panel over here. It's called Google Home. My cameras are connected to Google Home, and there you see the dining room from left to right, the kitchen, the living room, and the dining room. And I'm going to press the kitchen first. That's a live view of my kitchen. And I think I can reverse pinch this. I can. Those are my 2 ice makers. Those are KitchenAid. There are 2 of them, which generates plenty of ice. If Marilyn and I each want to have iced tea and this and that, I use ice, a lot of ice. So there's 2 of them that work at the same time. They work. I pour distilled water in each of the ice makers, so the ice cubes are beautiful, pure water. No elements. Forget filtered water. When they installed the refrigerator in my unit, I said, turn the water off. Right down there on the floor. Just turn that knob to off. I don't want the water hitting the ice maker. So you can keep the ice maker clean. You don't have to worry about the water filter, the ice maker. Because I'm going to make, you see those 2 bookies right there? They make our ice. Because in my house, I had a automatic distillation unit which had water that was pumped through a polyethylene pipe, not copper, and it went right into the back end of the ice maker in the refrigerator. And also there was a little doodad I had in my sink, so you could get a cup of ice, distilled water, without pouring jugs and all that stuff. It was all automated. Yeah. And every 2 weeks you'd clean out this distillation unit. Because you'd be amazed at how much crud gets pulled out of the water. The city water, that's so spectacular. But let me tell you, you run that distillation unit, we go through, let's say, 30 or 40 gallons of distilled water a month. Okay, so, after 5 or 6 months of that distillation unit working, you end up with a lot of crud in the boiling chamber of a distillation unit. It boils the water over here, the steam comes up, it goes through a bunch of coils, the coils are cooled with a fan, and then on the other end you have distilled water dripping out the end. And it dripped into a 10-gallon tank, reserve tank. And there was a pipe that came out of the bottom end of that, which connected to a demand pump, which ran at about 20 psi. So it'd pump until it got to 20 psi, and then it would stop pumping. Well, just the expansion and contraction of the piping material, the polyethylene, it gave it, some pressure that would build up in that pipe. And it would expand the polyethylene pipe a little tiny bit so that there was this pressure in there. So that's what pushed the water into the ice makers or into the little thing that was in the sink. Almost, the sink where you'd have like a, what do you call it, a soap dispenser. I took the soap dispenser pump out and I put a little faucet thing with a tab on it, so you could just push down on the tab and hold a glass of water if you wanted a quick bit of distilled water to add to your sauce, so you're making spaghetti sauce or something. What you'd also do is you'd fill up, liter bottles up to the top, and you put the liter bottles in the refrigerator, so you'd have a constant source of cold water, for example. Yeah. That's what we did in our house in Old Floresta. Yeah. It's hard to do that when you're in an apartment. I have no place to put the still, So instead of a distillation unit, I buy distilled water by the gallon. There's 12 gallons sitting outside my front door right now, which I need to get and bring inside. Marilyn's going to say, "Oh, you got distilled water out front." Yeah, I got to, each, a gallon weighs about 7.5 pounds for a gallon jug. So you got 3 of those in a cardboard container. So that's like 25 pounds per, including the material for the jugs and the reinforced cardboard that's, in the boxes. So you got 3 jugs sitting next to each other in this carton. That weighs like 22, 3, 4, 5 pounds. So each box is like, we'll just say 25 pounds. Well, it's not 25 ounces, it's 25 pounds. So, it's a little hard to lift, a little awkward to lift a 25-pound box. It's got a goofy shape, and you don't really have any handles on it, so you gotta diddle around with that. So I gotta carry, 75 pounds of distilled water from the front door to the place where I store the water in our 1,550 square foot It's no big deal. I just got to do it. And I'm going to do it right after I get out of this conversation. It's 4:30. Anyway, so there's my kitchen. How cool is that? Someone goes in the kitchen. Like here's, there you go. See, there's Jimmy. And I'm adjusting the angle to dangle because I noticed that it's tilted a little bit. So you can see my fingers. I'm reaching up on top of the refrigerator. I have this camera that's there's a little leaf. Oh yeah, I don't know how I can turn. That's really. I have it attached to a what do you call it? A tripod, and the tripod is taped to the top of the refrigerator, and that is a very stable arrangement. So here, in this view, I'm up there and I'm looking around. Oh yeah, there we go. There's a screw setting, and I can loosen the screw and turn the camera. Just it. There you go. I'm just imagining how much I have to turn it, and now you can see the equal amount of ceiling up on the top. It's a very wide angle lens, so the ceiling is not straight. It has a, an angle to it. Because there's a cabinetry, and now it's set horizontal. Yeah. Yeah. So we can see from the ice maker all the way around over here to the coffee maker. Yeah, there it is right there. I got one of those little stainless steel things so that it doesn't drip down and end up with a big wet mess underneath there. So I always have a little something to catch the extra drips. Yeah, so that's the kitchen. Anyway, so I sent my son, Daniel, who could come over here in an emergency. Because, I'm like over 80, can you imagine? Over 80. So if something happens to me and I'm laying on the floor in the kitchen, I was doing something in the kitchen, all of a sudden now I'm laying on the floor. He can run over there and help me, So I sent him a link, which has my very secret login information and the super so that he can see if he, I wonder how Dad's doing. I wonder how Grandpa's doing. So he can see Grandpa because I have 3 cameras. I think I should, so this is one of them. There you go. So there's the other 2. Here's the living room. This is live view. You can see the fan spinning around up here. See it? Our Hunter fan. That's about $1,000 fan nowadays. Maybe more. It's brass. It's a brass Hunter fan. A motor design of like 1905. We bought them new for our old Floresta house, but when we moved out, I took my fans with me. And 2 fans running. I got 2 or 3 more fans in storage somewhere. Jeez. I got an outlet in the gas room, but I can't find another fan. I know I've got another brass fan. I've seen it. Yes, I have. So that's the living room. Those are the couches. I sit here somewhere in one of those 2 spots. And Marilyn sits in this place where you can see the cushion, the little depressed cushion there. There's a lamp, thing with some stuff on an end table, a square table, 24 inches square. This, I think, is like a 50-inch, 52-inch custom-made cocktail table. It's a big one. I should measure it. I thought it was like 52 inches. Handmade out of South American, he called it hard pine. Hard pine. So it's, you can't, it's not, some pine wood is very soft. This wood is not soft. It's hard. Yep. All this furniture was handmade for us. In the factory right there in Pompano Beach. Anyway, so nothing that fancy. And the couches are all loused up because the cats scratched the leather and ruined the couches. There wasn't a scratch on them. Now they're all scratched up, When you're done with those couches, you just throw them away. Yeah, I guess, you'd leather over them. You wouldn't bother trying to. There's no way of saving that leather. It's all clawed up. Whoop, this camera went offline for a second. So we just push down. We'll look at this one. Now this is a camera that's showing the, table, dining room table. In this part of the living room from another view, you can see the fan is spinning. Now, I need to get into this camera. I don't know if I can do it here. So that focus more on the front door. There's a cat moving around. See the cat? That's the black cat. So he doesn't know I'm watching him. So he's walking into the kitchen. Just hanging around in there. But I really want this camera focused on the front door. Like that. I want that set with that kind of field of view. Now I'm digitally zooming with a reverse pinch, but that's what that camera is designed for the front door, so you can tell who's coming in the front door. Yeah. And you can see the blades, the tips of the blades, so you're live. You ever look at something where nothing's moving, you don't know whether the camera's working or not. Well, if you have a ceiling fan, like we do, you can see the paddles in the upper left corner of that view. But this camera is designed to be zoomed into that perspective, so that you catch the front door. So if anyone breaks in or has a pass key they're not supposed to have. Oh, there's a cat moving around. You see the cat, he's rolling, he's just sitting there. He's waiting for Marilyn to come home. He probably heard Marilyn coming up the elevator. These cats, they can hear like unbelievable. Yeah. So on this, I can see the front door. And on this one over here, you can see you see right here, I have this old iPad focused in on the kitchen, and this is focused in on the front door. And you could have a third just looking at the other view. You could have all three run at the same time. Anyway, I've had these cameras running for 15 years, but they went off because Nest upgraded their software and this and that, so I had to reconfigure the cameras to work on the new software. That took a year instead of a week. So now I've got 3 cameras running. One for the dining room view and the front door. Now if someone come in, you could always zoom and take a look, digitally zoom them. But it should be focused. It should be a tighter view on that one. And I can do it with any device. There's a setup screen, setup thingy. Settings. Let's try that. Uh-oh. Notification advance has got all kinds of things. Ooh. I don't think. No, let's do that. What is that? No, that's just telling me it's a camera thing. Let's go back to no. We'll just X out. Not that X out. This little X. There we go. Now we get back to the camera view. There is. Let's see, there should be a... My bird's nest. There's, screen in order to see the handles you need to set up the camera. So now it went off. I don't want to see this. So it's this one I want to zoom with this one. And I don't want to see that view. Let's see if any of these buttons, Explore or Gemini. No, I don't want to explore Gemini. And I don't want to see that stuff. These three little dits, what does that do? Settings, help, and feedback. Yeah, I don't understand this setting business here. Events, familiar faces, video, on, off, battery, wake up, sensitivity, bandwidth, maximum, yeah, night light, automatic, I don't want to remove device. There's the information about how the camera connects into the internet. It's really quite, when you get down to it, it's pretty sophisticated. It's one of these. No, turn it off. This cameras may not have. I know. I have two newer cameras and an older camera. And the older camera, you can set the focal length of the lens so that it would be focused on the front door. These cameras are high resolution cameras, so you just reverse. Oh, Marilyn's home. All right, I have to see her coming in the front door. And she's going in the kitchen. You'll see now in the kitchen view over here.